It started with a push notification that looked like a mistake. I was standing in my kitchen reheating yesterday's pizza for breakfast, phone on the counter buzzing like a hornet. The message was short, just said, "Emergency. Do not leave your house after sunset," in all caps, with that piercing government-style alert sound that makes your heart skip. I almost laughed. For a split second I thought maybe it was another Amber Alert, maybe a gas leak or some tornado warning, but then I read it again and the words felt heavier, like they belonged in a different country, not a small Pennsylvania suburb where the biggest drama last week was whether the McDonald's ice cream machine was working. I live alone, but my brother Mark FaceTimes me every other day. He's got 2 kids and a dog that looks like it's made of spare parts. This morning, his video call came in as I was brushing my teeth. He looked tired, pale, and he didn't joke about my hair like usual. "Did you get that message?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. He said he saw it, but didn't care. Probably just another scare tactic. Mark always acts like the world's biggest things are just another Tuesday. But today, he kept looking out his window, biting his thumbnail. He hung up quick. Said he had to check something outside, which felt wrong. Mark never hangs up first. That's when I noticed it. My street, which is usually full of morning dog walkers and high schoolers vaping by the mailbox, was dead quiet. The only movement was a UPS truck parked at the corner, engine running, the driver just sitting there staring at nothing, not touching his phone, not getting out. My neighbor, Mrs. Perkins, was sweeping her porch as usual, but her hands were shaking. There was a weird red smear on the sidewalk by her driveway. I figured it was just some kids spilled juice, but in the back of my mind I knew better. I've seen that color before. At a car accident, on my dad's shirt after he slipped with a kitchen knife, that sticky, dark kind of red that doesn't belong outside. Or anywhere, really. My job's remote, data entry for some boring logistics company, nothing heroic. Normally I'd get to work, but my Wi-Fi dropped. The router's lights were blinking like it was trying to tell me something. My phone had bars, but nothing loaded except the same emergency alert, repeating every few hours like a broken record. I called my boss, but it rang until it went to voicemail. I called my friend Amanda. She's a nurse, always answers nothing. Even group chats were dead, except for a couple of panicky texts. "Are you seeing this?" And "Dude, what the hell is going on?" After that, just radio silence. The TV worked for maybe an hour, local news arguing with itself. Some anchors said it was a drill, another said civil unrest, and then a police chief came on, eyes bloodshot, saying everyone should absolutely stay home and lock their doors before sunset. Like he was warning us about vampires or something. Around noon, the coughing started. At first, I thought it was coming from the apartment upstairs, old pipes, thin walls. But then I heard it outside, deep, hacking, desperate coughing, like someone choking on air. I saw the UPS guy get out of his truck, stumble to the sidewalk, and start throwing up. Mrs. Perkins went inside, holding her chest, and slammed the door so hard her welcome sign fell off. Something about it made me feel cold inside, even though the sun was out and the sky was clear. Then, just to make things extra surreal, a military van rolled down my block and stopped right in front of my house. 2 soldiers sat inside, not doing anything, just parked there for almost an hour. No sirens, no bullhorn, just this silent, armored presence. Every time I peeked through the blinds, they looked bored and scared at the same time. I tried to wave, but they didn't move. Eventually they drove off, slow and careful, like they were trying not to wake something up. I spent the next couple hours double-checking the locks, pulling out all the canned food from the back of the pantry, counting water bottles. I kept telling myself it was probably nothing, but I still dragged my old desk in front of the front door, which felt like the stupidest thing I'd ever done, until I remembered I didn't know what I was defending against. The urge to call someone, anyone, grew stronger by the minute, but nobody answered and the news stopped broadcasting. The screen just showed a spinning logo and a recorded loop of the same message. Stay inside after sunset. Do not respond to noises outside your home. Do not approach anyone acting strangely. Lock all doors and windows. Wait for further instructions. I kept checking the clock. Sunset was at 8:42 p.m., and as the hours dragged on, the whole house felt like it was closing in on me. I tried distracting myself. Video games, cooking, even folding laundry I'd ignored for weeks, but nothing helped. I kept glancing outside, half hoping to see people walking dogs, kids playing, anything normal. But the street stayed empty except for that same red stain and now a single shoe in the middle of the road. No birds, no cars, just silence, thick and unnatural. By the time the sun started to dip, I noticed my neighbor across the street, Joe, struggling to carry something big from his garage. He kept looking around, sweating, glancing up and down the block like he was being watched. I wanted to yell to him, tell him to get inside, but my voice caught in my throat. As he finally got his thing inside and slammed the door, a siren started up in the distance, one of those old-school air raid sirens, rising and falling. A sound I've only heard in movies. That's when I realized whatever was coming wasn't a joke or a glitch. It was real, and it was here. I shut the curtains, grabbed the baseball bat from under my bed, and sat down on the living room floor, phone in one hand, bat in the other. I stared at the front door, heart pounding, listening to the world change outside. I thought about my brother, about Mrs. Perkins, about the UPS guy, about all the people I should have checked on but didn't. I kept telling myself I was overreacting, that I'd wake up tomorrow and laugh about it. But as the last strip of daylight disappeared and the shadows crept across the ceiling, I knew, deep down, nothing would ever be normal again. I don't remember falling asleep. I just remember the siren finally fading and the silence afterward, heavy, absolute. A silence so deep I could hear my own pulse. My phone kept buzzing, sometimes with the emergency alert, sometimes for no reason. Every so often, I'd think I heard footsteps on the porch, or maybe just the house settling. I must have dozed off, leaning against the front door, baseball bat still in my hand. I woke up to a pounding so loud I thought the whole world was crashing through my front window. My heart jerked awake before my body. I scrambled up, nearly tripping over an empty soup can, and saw it was full daylight outside. The clock said 7:23 a.m. The banging kept coming, fast, desperate, someone slamming their fist against my door. For a second I thought about opening it, then I remembered the warnings. Do not respond to noises outside your home, but I heard a voice. Low, broken, begging. Please, it's Joe. Please, let me in. They're still out there. I wanted to believe it was him. I did. I peeked through the peephole and saw Joe from across the street. He was hunched over, blood on his shirt, his eyes wild, hands shaking so bad I thought he might collapse right there. His skin looked pale and slick, but it was his voice that broke me. It sounded exactly like Joe. He kept glancing over his shoulder, saying, "Don't let them see me. Please, man, just open up." My hands were sweating. I thought about every horror movie I'd ever watched, every time someone opened the door when they shouldn't have. But this was Joe. He was my neighbor. He used to shovel my walk in winter, let me borrow tools. I wanted to help. I really did. But then he started pounding harder, screaming, and I saw movement at the end of the street. 3 people stumbling along the sidewalk, moving weird, jerky, like they'd forgotten how to walk. One of them dropped to their knees and started crawling, face pressed to the pavement. The others followed, sniffing the air like animals. Joe saw them, screamed louder, and slammed his head against my door. That's when I saw the blood, bright and wet around his mouth, more on his hands. His eyes were wrong, not just wild but unfocused, like he was looking through me instead of at me. The 3 figures outside spotted him and started toward my house, all twisted limbs and snapping jaws. Joe started sobbing, begging me to let him in. Then suddenly he turned, ran down the steps, and the things pounced. I heard him scream, then this awful, wet, tearing noise, and then nothing but chewing. I stumbled back from the door, dropped the bat, and fell against the couch. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. I tried to call 911, but the line was dead. Just static, then a recorded message. All circuits are busy. Please stay indoors until further notice. My phone pinged again with the same emergency alert. That was it. No new information, no instructions, just those same words over and over. Do not leave your house after sunset. I crawled to the window and pulled the curtain back an inch. What I saw looked like something out of a nightmare. The 3 people who'd taken Joe were still there, hunched over his body, tearing at him with their hands and teeth, growling like wild dogs. One of them, an old lady I'd seen walking her poodle every morning, looked up at me. Her face was smeared with blood, eyes glassy, mouth opening and closing like she was trying to speak. She stood, staggered toward my porch, and pressed her bloody hands against the glass, smearing it in long, greasy streaks. That's when I realized it wasn't just infection, it was something else, something that made people lose their minds, lose themselves. I watched, frozen, as more figures shuffled into view, people from my street, all moving the same wrong way, all with the same hungry, empty eyes. I could see the postman, still in uniform, dragging his mailbag behind him, like he didn't even notice. Miss Perkins was there too, barefoot, blood trailing down her neck, staring up at my window like she recognized me but couldn't remember why. I ducked down, heart pounding so hard I thought it might explode. I thought about my brother, Mark. I hadn't heard from him since yesterday. I tried his number. Nothing. I tried his wife, his work, his neighbor. Nobody picked up. I felt so stupid for thinking it could never happen here in my town to people I knew. The world outside my window was gone, replaced by this sick, violent hunger that was wearing my neighbors like Halloween costumes. My house suddenly felt smaller, like the walls were closing in. I checked all the doors and windows again, stacked more furniture in front of the back door, taped up the seams with duct tape like it would help. Every muscle in my body ached. I thought about the supplies I had: 3 bottles of water, a box of stale crackers, half a bottle of Jack Daniels. I'd never prepped for anything in my life. Now I wished I had. As the afternoon dragged on, the sky got darker and the street quieter. The bodies outside didn't move much. Sometimes I heard them dragging themselves along the sidewalk, moaning, making these horrible, wet, choking sounds. I tried not to look, but every few minutes I'd check, just to make sure they weren't breaking in. I kept hoping the military would come back, that a helicopter would fly over, that someone would do something. But nothing happened. Just before sunset, I heard someone on my back porch. Footsteps, quiet, careful, like they were trying not to be heard. I grabbed the bat and crept down the hallway, heart in my throat. I heard whispering, low, frantic. "It's me, Amanda. Please, it's me. I need help." My hands shook so bad I could barely hold the bat. I peeked through the kitchen window and saw her crouched behind the grill, face streaked with tears and dirt, clothes torn. She looked normal. She looked terrified. "Amanda?" I whispered, barely loud enough for her to hear. She nodded, eyes wide, hands pressed flat to the glass. "Please, let me in. They're coming. I'm not like them, I swear." I wanted to believe her. She'd always been there for me. Late night talks, bad dates, everything. But all I could think about was Joe. I stood frozen, hand on the lock, trying to decide what to do. Behind Amanda, the things started to gather, drawn by her voice. She started crying, begging, pounding on the door. I made a decision. I unlocked the door, yanked her inside, slammed it shut, and locked it again. She collapsed on the floor, sobbing. I dropped to my knees next to her, heart racing. I hugged her, both of us shaking, surrounded by the sounds of monsters just outside the thin walls of my house. For the first time in my life, I realized I had no idea what to do next. When the last light faded and the world outside went black, the screaming started again. Amanda and I sat back to back in my living room with every window covered and a knife clutched in her shaking hands. She kept whispering, "I'm okay, I'm not sick," over and over, rocking slightly while I tried to calm her down and not let myself freak out. It felt like every second was balancing on a knife's edge, like the wrong move or word would shatter what little safety we had left. The sounds outside were constant, growing worse as the night deepened. Something heavy slammed against the back fence and dragged itself away. Sometimes we'd hear voices, sometimes snarling or glass shattering, but mostly just the sick, wet chewing I couldn't stop imagining. The worst part was how normal some of the monsters sounded. Every now and then someone would call out for help or beg to be let inside, and for a second it would sound just like a friend or a neighbor. But we knew better. We'd both seen what happened to Joe and the others. It wasn't just infection. It was some kind of twisted change. Like the people you trusted most had been replaced by something that learned just enough to pretend it cared. We tried not to talk about what we'd seen outside, but the silence was worse. Amanda told me about her escape from the hospital, how patients started attacking nurses, how she barely got out. She said the military came and just started shooting anyone who looked wrong. She said her friend Kelly was bitten and begged for help, and she had to leave her behind. I told her about Joe and Mrs. Perkins. We both cried a little, but we tried to laugh too. It sounded weird and hollow, but it was all we had. As the night dragged on, supplies became a problem. We had almost no food left, just some stale crackers, peanut butter, and a half bottle of whiskey. We each drank a little, not enough to get drunk, just enough to calm our nerves. The water was running low. Amanda said she'd seen a case of bottled water in the car outside. We both stared at each other, realizing what that meant. If we wanted to survive, we'd have to go out. Sometime around dawn, we heard movement on the porch, heavy, shuffling steps, not the frantic pounding from before. I peeked through the slats of a chair I'd jammed against the window and saw Mark, my brother, standing out there, eyes swollen, jacket torn, blood on his hands. My heart nearly exploded. He was calling my name, soft and slurred. "It's me. Please, open up. I'm cold. I'm hungry. Please." Amanda gripped my wrist, shaking her head. "Don't," she mouthed. I wanted to open the door. I really did. Every instinct in me screamed to help him, to let him in, to believe he was okay. But I remembered Joe, remembered the look in his eyes, and forced myself to step away. Mark started sobbing, his voice cracking. Then he got angry, slamming his fists against the door, cursing me, begging, then finally just whimpering. I slid down against the wall, fists clenched so tight my nails left marks. Amanda hugged me, and I just cried. I'd never felt like a worse person, but I knew I couldn't do it. I had to survive. The rest of that morning was a blur. At some point, the monsters smashed a window in the neighbor's house and dragged someone out. We heard the screams and covered our ears. The world outside kept getting worse. Fires in the distance, gunshots echoing, the sky turning gray with smoke. We knew we couldn't stay much longer. We made a plan. At sunset, we'd try to make it to Amanda's car, get supplies, and drive anywhere we could find people. It felt impossible, but waiting inside felt even worse. When night came again, things went from bad to hell. The crowd outside grew, dozens of them now, banging on cars, tearing at fences, moaning and howling. Someone started a fire a few houses down. The glow flickered against the walls, shadows dancing. Amanda and I grabbed whatever we could use as weapons. My baseball bat, her knife, a broken chair leg. We counted to 3, unlocked the back door, and ran. The moment we stepped outside, the world felt different, colder, sharper, dangerous in every direction. Amanda sprinted for the car, keys in her hand, while I swung at anything that got close. We made it to the street, but one of the monsters, someone I recognized from the gym, face mangled, mouth full of blood, grabbed Amanda's arm. She screamed. I hit it with the bat, but it wouldn't let go. She stabbed it in the neck, and it collapsed, twitching. She was crying, shaking, but she got the door open and we tumbled inside, locking the doors, gasping for breath. We drove away from the only home I'd ever known, past burning houses, overturned cars, and neighbors I'd never see again. Amanda was sobbing, hands trembling on the wheel, and I just stared out the window, numb. We didn't know where we were going, only that we couldn't go back. As the sun started to rise, we pulled over on the edge of town. Too tired to keep running, too scared to stop for long. We watched the light creeping over the ruined world. I realized we weren't who we'd been yesterday. We'd changed too. Maybe not like the monsters outside, but enough. Enough that I knew there was no going back. Not ever. We sat in silence, sharing a single bottle of water, waiting to see what the new day would bring, knowing we'd already lost more than we could ever get back.